Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. I'm here for the news this morning on Thursday, the 9th of April, 2020. It's 11 o'clock. Alex Duggan says, "Morning, Joe. How's your Thursday morning?" So far, so good. Got a coffee, set the set up. Set the set. There you go. Open the window, can hear the birds tweeting. Actually, I think it's just builders shouting at each other, but, in the city centre, that's as close as we're going to get. Today, then, we're going to be talking about this article that's come out in the Telegraph. It relates to and expands upon an interview that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did with Gary Neville and Jeff something of Sky Sports. One of the Jeffs. There's too many Jeffs. An interview he did with Sky Sports talking about a myriad of things, but one of the key things that's been sort of taken and put slightly out of context, and we'll get into that in a moment, is this idea that United are willing to exploit, is the word being bandied around, the transfer market, during this time. And I think, first of all, let's address the sort of, the kind of the wording and the phrasing of that quote. So Gary Neville asked the question to Solskjaer, and he used the word exploit in there. And Solskjaer's been getting a little bit of criticism from some people. I think some people looking to be offended, looking to find a problem with it, because really, like I said, Gary Neville used that word exploit when I think he's essentially saying that there'll be a turmoil, that we're not sure what's going on. I don't think he means exploit the people who are ill, the people who are having problems. I think, if you're looking at exploiting, even if you are exploiting other rich multi-million pound companies, I don't think, that's necessarily a big problem. And also, if anyone wants to throw anything at Gary Neville, look at the way he's responded to the sort of COVID-19 pandemic. And I think, pretty much everyone can see that he isn't anyone that's trying to exploit anyone or trying to make anyone exploit anyone who is in any sort of vulnerable position during this whole thing. So I think the idea that the word exploit, first of all, is being used by Gary Neville, who has been, one of the standout sort of operators, and the way he's dealt with things with his hotels, with all that kind of thing during this pandemic has been exemplary and something that's been followed by a lot of people, and it's been a great example to people. And secondly, Solskjaer himself was using the word that Neville used in the questions, as Gary Neville said that, "Hi James, Ole repeated the word I used in the question. The word shouldn't have been used by me." So again, I think that word is being pushed to the forefront, and we've used it in the title to address this point, but it's been pushed to sort of the forefront of the reporting on this interview, and really that was just a sort of semantic thing that doesn't really represent either the interviewer or the interviewee, certainly in my eyes anyway. Obviously everyone's free to have their own opinions on that, but the article that came out as a response to that, and I said there, Neville talking, "Hi James, Ole repeated the word I used in the question." James in this case is James Ducker of the Telegraph, who has written the article, "United ready to exploit transfer market opportunities. Jack Grealish, the Aston Villa playmaker, the Birmingham City midfielder Jude Bellingham are two of United's leading targets, in addition to Dortmund and England winger Jadon Sancho." Again, we've talked about this so many times now, where it almost seems as though, certainly the Sancho deal, like he's even put there, the way that's phrased, Jack Grealish, the Aston Villa playmaker, and Birmingham City midfielder Jude Bellingham are among two of United's leading targets, in addition to Dortmund England winger Jadon Sancho. Like, Sancho's in his own bracket where, not like the deal's been completed, but it's this sort of understood, United want Sancho. Yeah, he's one thing, it's boring now. Let's talk about Bellingham and Grealish. It's almost as though, that he's been kind of sort of sequestered. I don't really know if I use that word properly there, but he's this separate entity that is just this understood deal. Oh yeah, you got Jadon Sancho, but Grealish and Bellingham are the new ones. Let's get into the article then. Anyway, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer believes Manchester United will be well placed to, again, quote, exploit any transfer market opportunities brought about by the coronavirus crisis. We'll get into it a bit more before we get back to that. But the United manager's provocative comments came as the chief executive of Germany's Bundesliga warned that the transfer market could collapse in the short term as the global pandemic takes toll. Solskjaer believes some of the clubs may be forced to offload players to ease financial problems in the wake of the chaos at United. England's biggest and richest side could take advantage of. Again, take advantage of, exploit. It's got this sort of downward pressure on it, this article, hasn't it? It's sort of, his intentions are being squeezed into a sort of a funnel that is, of Ducker's design here. Jack Grealish, the Aston Villa playmaker, and Birmingham City midfielder Jude Bellingham are two of United's leading targets again, in addition to the Borussia Dortmund and England winger Jadon Sancho. Who knows how the market is going to react to this? The United manager said, who knows which clubs need to sell players? There might just be a situation where you can exploit. And I know that Man United are one of the biggest and the biggest financially well off. I'm sure we are capable, when we get back to normality, that we can do business that we want to. How Solskjaer's remarks are received among struggling clubs and beyond remains to be seen as the country fights to avoid the spread of the deadly COVID-19 virus. So again, there he's talking, it's quite sort of, and this is, again, the Telegraph, James Ducker, usually a slightly more conservative, and not politically conservative. I mean, just the way they write is a little bit more conservative, and not quite as outlandish and as sort of aggressively clickbaity as a lot of the tabloid newspapers, which that's just their style. But even in this, you can see this sort of reliance on the kind of, are you offended by these comments? It remains to be seen how his comments are taken. Exploiting quotes, struggling clubs beyond and beyond remains to be seen as the country fights to avoid the spread of the deadly COVID-19 virus. Like we don't know that. Like putting the deadly in there is like, what, you're trying to exploit dead people? That's kind of the vibe that's being pushed on this one a little bit. But again, sometimes you say comments like that, and people have to scrutinise you. So in a way, fair enough. But the Norwegian said he and his staff have been using the time afforded by the national lockdown to run the rule over potential targets and assess his own squad to ensure United are ready when football does resume. Again, Solskjaer saying football is going to get back to normality at one point, and it's very important we are ready when that happens. So I think the aim here for Solskjaer and for the rest of the club is aiming for normality rather than aiming for some kind of, big fat cat style swooping in, taking all everyone's players for a pittance, because they can't afford to keep anyone because everyone at the club's fallen ill, which is kind of the message that's been put there. But again, you say something like that and you're going to get a little bit of stick from it. Birmingham may be forced to sell Bellingham to raise funds. Yeah, Bellingham, that's a good point, Max, because Birmingham are in a different situation to Dortmund and to even Aston Villa, who, if they stay in the Premier League, may well be, financially secure. But Birmingham is a slightly different prospect where, like you said, they may be forced to sell Bellingham to raise funds. That's a good point. Another point to that, which kind of is to your point and slightly different point, is that they were already potentially forced to sell Bellingham even before this. So obviously that problem will have deepened. But I think, it was Birmingham were already in a position where they may well have had to get that 30-40 million that they're going to be getting for Bellingham, regardless of the situation. So yeah, that problem will have probably been made worse by this. But yeah, it's interesting. You think ruthless businessmen in charge of billions of pounds won't take advantage? I'm not saying that they won't take advantage in a kind of, these are the players we wanted to buy anyway type of situation. And they were, United are always going to be trying to pay the least for any target. I don't think we're going to be just buying up, player after player after player that we didn't want in the first place just because they're all cheap now. When you go into the supermarket and you're hungry and you see the reduced aisle and you're like, I don't really need 4 jars of chicken korma, but they are 18p each. So you get them. I don't think it's like that. I think we're going to be going after the same players, the same targets as we were before, but maybe now they'll be only worth 70 to 80% of what they would have been before. But even then, I think if you're buying from a big club, I think if United are affected by this, if anyone's affected by this, I think everyone will be. And obviously, if you're taking 20% off your earnings for a team like United, they can still sort of live without those earnings, and other clubs maybe will be struggling. But it's not like United have made more money from this problem, is it? They just will have lost maybe slightly less. But it's not like it's a good situation for anyone to be in. And again, I think that word exploit was used by Solskjaer because that was the word that was used by Neville in the questioning, rather than any real desire to sort of hurt or damage clubs that have struggled during this time. Someone says, "Who loves a bargain? Who doesn't love a bargain?" Yeah, someone there. hopefully this pandemic. Ole is one of the nicest blokes in football. It's pretty obvious he didn't mean it nastily, but all big businesses take advantage when they can. How many offers are at the supermarkets now? Yeah, there is that as well. Again, I just think it's going to be getting the best deal that United can for the players that they already wanted, rather than it being a particularly, aggressive or sort of nasty or vindictive type of move by us, where we're sweeping up player after player after player just because they're, on offer, so to speak. But it's interesting. I think, if this transfer market decreases, anyone that we sell, potentially Paul Pogba, has been rumoured to be leaving for a long time. I've got the camera on autofocus at the moment, and it's having an absolute nightmare. Paul Pogba is one of them. Chris Smalling is another one. Phil Jones, Marcus Rojo, Alexis Sanchez have all been rumoured to be leaving this summer. Jesse Lingard, Andreas Pereira. If the market plummets and the market, shrinks in its size, the transfer market, we're going to lose money on those players as well. So it's not, it's not like anyone is really in a great position to be. I don't think United are, rubbing their hands together with what's going on at the moment by any means. And I think actually let's move on to our second story, an article that's just come out. I say an article, a press release that's just come out from Man United today, or about 5 minutes before we went live. This was released on Manchester United's app here, talking about Manchester United today announced the package of measures to support the NHS in its response to the coronavirus pandemic. The club stands ready to consider and accommodate further requests from the NHS for the use of facilities at Old Trafford. A fleet of United Foundation vehicles was dispatched on Wednesday to Salford Royal NHS Foundation Trust and the NHS Manchester Foundation Trust, with over 3,500 United gifts for NHS staff, including the unsung heroes of hospital, cleaning and backroom staff, which is, it's nice that they're being taken into account as well. The people who've probably had their workload tripled and haven't been necessarily getting some of the plaudits and the credit that they deserve. This follows the first wave of donations made by the foundation last week to local hospitals. They've also got 16 vehicles put on standby with volunteer drivers. There's also, the club is encouraging staff to volunteer for the NHS or in their local communities during the pandemic, particularly those who have currently reduced workload. Staff will continue to be paid by Manchester United in full if volunteer works take place during those working hours. So, when you talk about the word exploit and the sort of angle that's trying to be taken on certain things, and you read stuff like this, I think over the last few years, sometimes the sort of that public image of United, that public-facing sort of portion of the club, hasn't always been up to the standard you'd expect from United. I think there's been a lot of bad press about the owners and the people in the board and the people who make the decisions at Manchester United. But I personally think that this sort of stuff is exemplary, and I think they've handled the whole current pandemic, in a way that is, something to be looked up to by a lot of clubs. And I think, again, it's hard to really throw a lot of blame and a lot of aggression and anger at a manager when the club he represents is doing so much good work to help out, with the NHS and that kind of thing. They've also been put on a reserve list as a possible temporary blood donation centre, which may be activated later in the year due to response to a potential fall in blood donations during the coronavirus pandemic. So there's all sorts going on, and it's nice that they are doing everything that they can, or certainly a lot to help the situation where they can, which I think is great. Someone talking about people with Pagey with his emojis there. We're going to be getting some more emojis, actually. Every time you get more subscribers, you unlock the potential for more. So they've only got 5 at the moment, more members, sorry. But now we can have up to 12, so I'm going to get some more put in there today. But those membership emojis there are for people who click the little join button next to the subscribe button on the video. And if you do join, you get extra videos, extra content, loads of fun stuff. Those emojis in the chat, we're going to do some videos where there'll be sort of members only chat and stuff, maybe later on watch alongs, that kind of thing. So if you're interested in supporting the channel and getting loads of extra stuff as well, do check those memberships out, and it would be a massive help, especially during the old coronavirus times. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for us today. Thank you very much for joining me. Cam with his own fist in his mouth. He's got a giant mouth and it's absolutely disgusting. We're going to be back later on today at 4 o'clock with the podcast. There's going to be a return, I think, of some sort of, I know that'll be Tuesday, Tuesday is going to be the return of some old faces around Stretford Paddock. Some of the original viewers may recognise some of these people. But today we should have Stephen, we should have Alex, and hopefully Kieran, who has been battling a non-COVID-19 illness, where he's basically just been being sick all weekend. So hopefully he's over that now, and hopefully he'll be all right. But yeah, again, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you again for those of you who are members, and if you would like to do that again, just click that join button and have a little look what you fancy doing. We're back for the podcast at 4 p.m. live on Stretford Paddock, and we'll see you then.